2.1.
Set final millage rate of 5.9550 mils for fiscal year 2021-2022 against non-exempt real and personal property within the city of Clearwater and pass ordinance 9497-21 on first reading. Ms. Castle.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Kayleen Castle, Budget Officer. Thursday is the first of two public hearings required by Florida statute to finalize the fiscal year 21-22 operating and capital improvement budget. This item approves the ordinance to adopt the millage rate of 5.9550 mils for the upcoming year. This is the same rate as was approved in the current year. As part of the public process on Thursday, I will go through a presentation with this item.
Any questions at this time for Ms. Castle? 2.2.
Approve the fiscal year 2021-2022 annual capital improvement budget, establish a 6-year plan for capital improvement program, and pass ordinance 9499-21 on first reading. Ms. Castle.
This is for the first reading of the ordinance to adopt the capital improvement budget for fiscal year 21-22. No changes have been made to the capital budget plan since you saw the preliminary release in July.
Any questions? 2.3.
Approve the recommended penny for Pinellas project list as revised for fiscal years 2021-2022 through 2030. Ms. Castle.
Thursday is the annual public hearing to approve the penny for Pinellas project list for fiscal years 21-22 through 29-30. City ordinance requires us to hold a public hearing prior to the adoption of the capital improvement budget to discuss the use of penny for Pinellas tax, and at any time in which there is a proposed change to the penny for Pinellas project funding of $500,000 or more. Changes to the approved penny project list proposed in the fiscal year 22 capital budget reflect no changes to the funding total, just transfers between projects and timeline changes. The fire engines and ladder truck replacement project is being reduced by a total of $350,300 due to recognizing the allocation of fire tax revenues from the county. This funding is being reallocated to the City Hall project in fiscal year 21-22 to provide funding to respond to location studies, site surveys, or property evaluations if opportunities are presented in advance of construction funding, which is available in fiscal year 24-25. The Public Safety Vehicle Equipment Facility project, with total funding of $1.5 million, is being separated into two separate projects: the Fire Vehicle Equipment Facility and the Police Vehicle Equipment Facility projects. These new projects, budgeted at $750,000 each, are funded in fiscal year 21-22 to provide for location-specific storage of both fire and police department oversized vehicles. The Aviation Operations Center project, which provides for construction of a new operations center at the Clearwater Air Park, is being postponed to fiscal year 26-27. And the Sandkey Bridge Replacement Fund, with total funding of $22 million, originally planned for 26-27 through 29-30, is being eliminated from the project list due to an updated replacement timeline now estimated for 2070. And the Waterfront Bluff Master Plan project is being increased by $22 million to provide additional funding needed for construction of the beautiful Imagine Clearwater project. This funding will be available in fiscal year 26-27 through 29-30. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on those changes.
Any questions for Ms. Castle?
These are good.
All right, 2.4.
Approve the City of Clearwater annual operating budget for the 2021-22 fiscal year and pass ordinance 9498-21 on first reading. Ms. Castle.
This is for the first reading of the ordinance to adopt the operating budget for fiscal year 21-22. Although totals remain the same, there are a few changes that have been budgeted, that have been made to the preliminary budget that was released in July. The following are reflected in the ordinances you're approving. In general fund revenues, the categories of miscellaneous and transfer in revenues were adjusted to account for revenues in the correct categories. These updates net to zero. For general fund expenditures, the non-department budget is being reduced by $1,300,835, transferring this amount to the police department to account for the FOP and FOP supervisors contracts, which were approved at the last council meeting on September 2nd. And in the parking fund, a correction was made to move an expenditure between two cost centers. I'd be happy to answer any questions on this ordinance.
Any questions? Councilmember Beckman.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that I'm still concerned about the amount of money we allocate from general funds for social service support throughout the county, and I hoped that it could be more. But I understand we can make budget amendments throughout the year as we're faced with more challenges.
Any other questions or comments? We'll hear this further on Thursday. 2.5.
Amend the city's fiscal year 2020-2021 operating and capital improvement budgets at third quarter and pass ordinances 9500-21 and 9501-21 on first reading. One more time, Kayleen.
This is the third quarter and final budget review for the fiscal year 2021 budget. This report reflects 9 months of activity, October through June, and also includes council action to date. And the general fund expenditures are increased by $591,193. Amendments include an increase of $37,000 to fund the Engman Street property purchase, a transfer of $10,000 to the Marine Fund for the water taxi agreement, an increase of $148,493 to police and fire supplemental pensions. This will bring the budget in line with both revenues and expenditures. An increase of $95,700 to fire department overtime, which is offset by reimbursement revenues recognized from the county. And the transfer of $300,000 to the capital fund to establish the Green Print implementation project. At third quarter, we review all general fund revenues and amend as necessary to bring the budget in line with receipts that are anticipated for the remainder of the year. As you all are aware, the current year's budget was created in a time of uncertainty due to the pandemic, and we brought forward very conservative revenue projections, not knowing what residual impacts we would have this year. The good news is most of our revenue streams have fully restored, even showing modest growth over prior years. This results in a substantial increase to general fund revenues at third quarter. Adjusted for the expenditures noted, this results in a surplus of $11,522,630 at third quarter. This surplus offsets the use of reserves previously allocated this year, projecting an increase of $9.9 million to fund reserves at year end. Adjusted for items in this report, general fund reserves are approximately $58.2 million, or 35.3% of the fiscal year 21-22 proposed general fund budget. This exceeds our minimum reserve requirement by $44.1 million. And the gas fund expenditures are increased by a transfer of $1,184,867 to the for a transfer to the general fund representing the increased dividend payment, and a transfer of $560,000 to the natural gas vehicle station project. Revenues budgeted in the fund are sufficient to cover this expenditure increase. Marine fund expenditures are increased by a transfer of $150,000 to the beach marina upgrades projects. This is offset by revenues budgeted in the fund also. Third quarter amendments to the parking fund expenditures reflect an increase of $240,000, and this will fund increases in contractual services and processing fees due to increased usage of the Park mobile app. And parking revenues are also increased by $2.5 million to bring the budget in line with anticipated revenues for the remainder of the year. Central insurance fund expenditures are increased by $4,412,740. Amendments include an increase of $3,062,740 to medical insurance premiums, which is offset by a revenue amendment recognizing health insurance contributions for both dependents and retirees. Increases totaling $950,000 to liability and workers' compensation claims, and an increase of $400,000 to liability insurance premiums. In the Capital Improvement Fund, a net increase of $38,577,718 is reflected at third quarter. Amendments include the council-approved increase of $560,000 of gas fund revenues in the natural gas vehicle project, an increase of $37,020,000 in the Imagine Clearwater project, and this amendment is to create the total project budget based upon the final GMP that was approved in July. Increases of general fund revenues of $150,000 in the Carpenter Field project, $123,000 in the Baycare Ballpark project, $95,000 in the Parks fencing project, $115,532 in the Crest Lake Park project, and $300,000 in the new green print implementation project. An increase of $150,000 of marine fund revenues in the Beach Marina Upgrades project, an increase of $20,712 of property owner share revenues in the Pinellas New Mains project for the gas system, an increase of $100,000 in gas fund revenues in the Gas Pinellas building project, and this is to correct a budget error that was made at mid-year, and a decrease of $89,465 in insurance proceeds in the garage off-cycle replacement project. These revenues are being moved to the special program fund. In the special program fund, an increase of $11,944,950 is reflected at third quarter. Significant amendments include the receipt of $11,241,947 in American Rescue Plan Act funding, an increase of $46,733 in public safety grant revenues for investigative cost recovery, federal forfeiture sharing, and pedestrian and bicycle safety, an increase of $20,157 in governmental revenues from the Pinellas County School Board for school resource officers extra duty, $25,125 in donation revenues to support police and library programs, $87,660 in community development block grant program income, $3,900 in foreclosure registry fees collected, $96,067 in fines and court proceeds for public safety programs and the tree replacement program, $138,428 in insurance claim revenue for police vehicle replacements, an increase of $15,000 for the cost of an asset transfer to the general fund from investigative cost recovery, and $270,484 in contractual service revenue for police extra duty. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions for Ms. Castle? We will hear this again on Thursday. Thank you, Ms. Castle.
Thank you.
3.1.
Approve a local government contribution of $75,000 in general fund reserves to be set aside as a commitment for the minimum local government contribution that is required for Archway Partners, LLC, Archway, to receive the basis boost in the state of Florida's low-income housing tax credit program for an 80-unit affordable housing development project at 1250 Cleveland Street. Approve section 15.18 and 15.21 of the development agreement between the Community Redevelopment Agency and the City of Clearwater and Archway, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Lane.
Thank you. Chuck Lane, Economic Development Housing Department. Mayor and Council, you recently approved this agreement serving as the Board of Trustees of the CRA. The agreement is for the development and purchase and sale of the CRA-owned site at 1250 Cleveland Street. The development proposal calls for a minimum of 80 units of affordable housing. The proposal was selected through the city RFP process. It was RFP 43-21. The agreements between Archway Partners, LLC and the CRA. The city is a party to the agreement only as it relates to sections 15.18 and 15.21 of the agreement. These sections commit the city to contributing a local government contribution of $75,000. The project will be primarily funded by equity gained through the sale of tax credits. This tax credit program is administered by the Florida Housing Finance Corporation. Florida Housing requires an applicant to secure a minimum local government contribution of $75,000 for the project to be eligible for approval. Following approval of this item, Archway Partners will submit an application to Florida Housing in response to Florida Housing's request for applications 2021-205. The application was initially due next week, but the due date has been pushed back to October 19th, and Florida Housing is expected to have a decision on its selection expected by the end of December of this year. So I should note that while the agenda item secures general fund money for this expense, staff plans to use State Housing Initiative's partnership program funds to make the contribution. I'll take questions, please.
Questions for Mr. Lane? Consent?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. 4.1.
Approve the purchase of excess liability, excess workers' compensation, and numerous specialty insurance policies from October 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2022, at an amount not to exceed $1.3 million pursuant to Code of Ordinances, City Code of Ordinances, Section 2.5631I, Insurance, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Osorio.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. Good morning. Rick Osorio, Risk Manager. The Risk Management Division of the Finance Department purchases excess and specialty insurance policies through the city's insurance broker, Arthur J. Gallagher and Company. These policies include an excess liability package through Lloyd's of London for coverages including general liability, automobile liability, and other specialty liability policies. This includes the purchase of an excess workers' compensation package through Safety National for workers' compensation and employer liability coverage, and additional excess policies for third-party storage tank liability, hull protection and indemnity, cyber liability, and numerous flood policies. This year's liability renewal will be with our current carrier, Brit Insurance. Brit was unable to provide a multi-year rate guarantee for this renewal due to market conditions. They are willing to renew our coverage for $338,281, which is a 16.06% increase in premium over last year's renewal. For our workers' compensation excess policy, the city was also unable to obtain a multi-year agreement with our current carrier, Safety National, but we are able to renew our policy for a premium of $418,971, which is an increase of 11.62% over fiscal year 2021. Risk Management is estimating an increase of 15% for renewals of the additional excess and flood policies, with the exception of cyber liability coverage, which could increase substantially due to market conditions and availability. We estimate a 150% potential increase during the renewal of this policy. This request includes a contingency of $32,178 to accommodate any other unforeseen increases. The total requested not to exceed amount of $1.3 million is 23.52% increase over fiscal year 2021, not to exceed $52,431. The Risk Management Division is prospectively requesting approval of the renewal of these policies.
Questions for Mr. Osorio? Vice Mayor.
And Rick, I don't expect you to have this off the top of your head, but last year's not to exceed number was just a little over $1 million. How close did we come to that number? And
You mean as far as actual pay?
yeah, actual pay.
I think we ended up paying $1,037,398, so we came a little bit under that number.
So we were just about 13,000 under.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
good.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Other questions? I still question us insuring 46. Fire Station 46.
And we're getting ready to.
We had our one-on-one, and
Yes.
that was one of the questions I had for you. I've thought more about it. We're going to be tearing it down.
Right.
I just don't know why we would continue to insure that while it's under construction.
Well, because it's owned property by the city, if anything happens on it that would cause any kind of injuries or claims, it's still a liability-owned premises. So we still have to insure it for liability, not necessarily structural property coverage. I think that's what we're going to have modulars on. But on any active property that we have, whether there's a structure or structure being demolished, we still need to carry the liability coverage. So on vacant lands, we don't. If anything happens on a property we own, there's no structure on it, somebody falls on it, we automatically have coverage. It's not scheduled, so we're not paying a premium for that. But anytime we have, property like this that's in transition, then we have to carry liability coverage.
But we're transitioning, Chief. Can you come up? I understand the prices are escalating on the fire station, but when are we hoping to start demo?
So, Scott Ellis, Fire Chief, good morning, Council. We're looking at finishing up the current temporary fire station. It's working on that. And then once we get that moved, we want to try and move them over. The cost for Fire Station 46, just like everything else, the projects that are going, has gone up quite extensively on some of that. Nothing's changed in what the scope was. It's just the cost of the construction. So as I try and look at the money, because we have not done a GMP yet, that's coming up because nobody will give you a GMP until we get closer to that. We're hoping, if everything goes okay, that somewhere October, November, the old station will be brought down because they would be moved over to the temporary station here in September. And then we'll start the new station.
So Rick, do we need liability insurance when the contractor has control of the property? I mean, we self-insure a lot of things, correct?
Yeah, yes, to a certain degree, but if there's an active construction on our property, we need to have builder's risk, we need to have liability coverage, so those coverages will have to be in place. Once if the old station is being torn down completely, that's going to be vacant land, then we can actually take that piece of property off our liability schedule. It will now be vacant land, and we'll move all the coverages to the new location if that's what's going to happen. So, but as long as anything actively is happening on our own property, as far as the structure, tear down, demolition, we still need to have those coverages in place. So,
Vice Mayor and then Councilmember Beckman.
Well, this brings me to probably an unrelated question to the insurance, but right now then, we have to insure, are we having to insure the temporary site that we're building for the fire station? Are we having to have greater insurance on that site now because of what it's being used for versus it being a park previously? And part two of the question is, wouldn't it have been cheaper to design a new Station 46, build it where they're building the temporary, and then when that construction is done, tear down the existing 46 and make that area a larger park area of Mandalay Park? I know there would be some uproar from certain people about the naming because we're building on McKay Park, but we could always move the name of McKay Park to Mandalay Park. It seems like we could have saved money rather than building a temporary to tear down, build a new one, and then move into it. Why not just build the new one, save the cost of building the temporary, and then make the existing site
I think that horse has left the barn.
that horse is less. I'm sure it has, but why was that not considered, from the beginning?
I can answer the first part of your question,
Yeah.
Mr. Hamilton, is I believe there's modulars now at the temporary location, if I remember correctly. We do have builder's risk coverage in that. We also have liability coverage in that. We also have to pay for liability coverage for the modulars because Wilcox, I think, is the provider, is asking for us to insure them for property and liability. So it's just the cost of doing business when we create a temporary location like that. So, but the second part of your question, I can't answer.
That's not a question for
because
you.
the horse is running down the road already, so.
Yeah, if I may ask the second part of that question. So we looked at many things. One of the things was McKay Park was the initial aspect of it. It's just the size of footprint needed. So when we looked at that, this was before my time, that was didn't fit what we needed in regards to the size. The size that we're on right now, it's not much bigger. It's not a lot much bigger in regards to it's a postage stamp size. But the initial aspects of it is everybody that I talked to, neighborhoods and community, that station is exactly where we need it. It's a icon there. There's so many rescues that have occurred just because the person knows that on the beach that just over that dune there's a fire station, so I can run there and get help. So again, it really, for me, it emphasized the need that it really needed to stay in that area, very close. And then with the initial design, if you remember, sir, it was taken the other middle of the park,
Right.
And that got very costly. And now we're back at the same boat where everything is very costly again. So that's why we moved it back to there.
When should we see those costs?
As soon as
Adjustments.
I've been working with Micah on a time to be able to look at that stuff and figure it all out. They are again on 46. The question is the GMP. They're getting those numbers now, but they won't have them back for some time. So I've asked over and over again to make sure that they give me something. I got to have something to be able to look at that in regards to that. So that should be
Councilmember Beckman.
Well, I was just going to say this question about insuring on a piece of land that we're going to demolish the building reminded me of I think, part of the discussion of the Imagine Clearwater final project and some of the insurance where we had to purchase insurance to insure materials that are sitting on our property, where the developer should have insurance to cover that as well, but we have to buy additional, correct? Because if something might happen, if those are destroyed, or if someone's hurt on them, or,
Right, and we also get a break on the taxes if we buy the materials ourselves. There's a tax exemption that we can take advantage of, so that helped offset the cost a little bit. So, yeah, but we are required to buy that coverage.
okay, thanks.
Councilmember Albrecht.
Rick, on our one-on-ones, you were telling me about the cost of the IT insurance, and I understand that cities have been held hostage and lots of money going out. And I think one of my questions to you was, and I don't see Dan here today, I don't think. Oh, there he is in the back. So my question is, I don't think Rick can answer this, are we spending enough money on upgrading our IT capabilities? Because when I look at the cost of what the insurance is on this, it's like, it just makes sense to me to put some of that money in, instead of being at risk, put it into the IT part of it to keep it from happening.
Dan Mayer, IT Director. I don't want to get too excited, but yes, we are, and we can certainly spend more. The part of responsibility is trying to keep up with the risks that are presented while maintaining a stable and reliable environment without IT being the focus of what the city's about. And that's the tension. So I can spend more money, and we will have to spend certain money, but it's measured, and we want to do that with an open mind and balance all the other priorities that we have. So yes, we are. We spent a lot of money in the last 2 years updating infrastructure, and we have more coming. So you may want to wait and see what that looks like, but we'll have some cloud solutions coming forward. We'll be doing some things on the network that will require additional cost as well. So it's a never-ending battle.
Yeah, I know there's something that comes up every year that's different. So, but I'm glad that you all are talking and they're aware that we are making the improvements. And because I was blown away by the rate was just, it was a lot. So
The risk exposure financially doesn't really correlate to the actual risk to the network from a hack. So it's just the cost of recovering from it. So they're almost two different value scenarios, but it is a challenge, and we're pursuing it, and we'll be doing some things structurally. I mean, I don't want to say the word outsource, but we'll be putting more things in the cloud. We'll be dispersing our targets, if you will, and some of those major systems will take longer than others, but it's a very conscious effort to bolster our security and be mindful of introducing any new risk.
How much of those improvements are going to be one-time expenses versus ongoing? I know we're putting you on the spot.
Well, most of them will be ongoing. If it's equipment, I have to maintain it. If it's software as a service or you put it in the cloud, it's an ongoing relationship.
License.
So there's really very few things that will be one-time costs.
Okay. Anything else on 4.1? Consent?
yep.
Yes.
4.2.
Approve an extension of the claims service contract with Sedgwick Claims Management Services, Inc. of Nashville, Tennessee, in the not-to-exceed amount of $300,000 for a 3-year term pursuant to City Code of Ordinances, Section 2.5631I, Insurance, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Osorio.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. Risk Management is seeking renewal and extension for 3 years of our contract through 2024 with Sedgwick Claim Management Services to provide supplementary claim services. These services for city liability and property claims will be beneficial to have in place if excessive claims are received due to a disaster or a storm or other extenuating circumstances. This renewal contract has no changes in terms and or pricing. Risk Management has retained Sedgwick in the past to fill in for staff shortages, and they provide professional and excellent claim services. This contract and extension will provide Risk Management and the city greater effectiveness and flexibility in the investigation and fiscal management of our liability and property claims. The Risk Management Division is respectfully requesting approval of the renewal and extension of this contract.
Questions? Is there a reason this can't go on consent? That's what I thought. Consent?
Yep.
All right,
Thank you.
4.3.
Approve a 2-year extension of Master Banking Services Agreement with Wells Fargo Bank N.A. for a period of October 1, 2021 through September 30, 2023, for a not-to-exceed amount of total of $240,000 for banking and custodial safekeeping services, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Ravens.
Good morning, Mayor and council members. Jay Ravens, Finance Director. The city has been using Wells Fargo for banking services since October 2016. At that time, council approved a 3-year agreement with options for 2-year renewals. At this time, we are requesting council approval of the second and final 2-year renewal. The renewal includes no change in fees, but it does include 2 changes in the interest rates we receive on our deposits with Wells Fargo. We earn an earnings credit rate, or ECR, on the portion of our balance sufficient to offset our bank fees. This is a higher rate of interest than we earn on the balance of our monies. The original agreement had a floor or minimum rate of 40 basis points. Wells Fargo is proposing to eliminate the floor with this renewal. They are offering a current rate of 25 basis points for the ECR rate, but it is subject to change as the interest rate market changes. The second change is similarly eliminating the floor or minimum rate of 15 basis points that is paid on the remaining balance of our monies on deposit. They are offering a current rate of 17 basis points, but it is also subject to change as the interest rate market changes. Staff is very pleased with the quality of services provided by Wells Fargo and feels the requested changes are reasonable given the current interest rate market. Wells Fargo assures us that as rates normalize in the future, the bank will make equitable adjustments to rates. Staff recommends approval of this final 2-year extension of the agreement for a not-to-exceed total of $240,000.
Questions for Mr. Ravens? What are our normal balances in these accounts?
We need to maintain, to take maximum advantage of the 40 basis point floor. We were maintaining a balance of about 28 million, but it was really to take advantage of that rate. And even the rate they pay on excess balances is competitive with what we can get on longer term money. So we've been maintaining a higher balance than we need. All we would need to maintain would probably be in the range of probably 7 to 10 million is a very safe balance to maintain.
So they've eliminated the floors, and they say as rates change, then they'll
It could
fluctuate.
go, yeah.
What's it based upon, though? I mean, normally you have a rate based on LIBOR, for instance,
Yeah.
which is going away, but
As a major bank, they withhold the right to base it however they choose. The reality is, with only 2 years left and us coming upon, we are very happy with Wells Fargo. They've earned our business. They want to keep our business. I can't see them doing anything to jeopardize that over the next 2 years by doing anything that they can't support, they can't validate support with where current rates are. So I'm sure when we ask for that equation, if they go to lower the rates, they'll provide us with some support for what they're basing it on. But I don't think they want to be tied to anything via an agreement as far as a base.
well, they're
At
still
least
getting
not
a
at this
pretty
point.
good spread on the money we're using.
Yeah,
You don't want to go out for another bit, though. That's what I'm hearing.
absolutely. With only 2 years left, again, we're very, very happy with Wells Fargo. We get virtually no complaints. We didn't have that situation with the previous bank, so.
Okay. Any other questions? Consent?
Yeah.
5.1. Thank you, Mr. Ravens.
Review Clearwater Gas System fiscal year 2021 dividend transfer to the general fund and discuss in concept the CGS Vision 2035 proposal. Mr. Warrington.
Chuck Warrington, Executive Director of Clearwater Gas System. This is our annual meeting where we report on our dividend from last year's actual performance. By City Council policy, Clearwater Gas commits to pay an annual dividend to the city at a minimum of $1.7 million to the general fund. After the city books close at the end of the year, which takes a few months, this was April or May before we actually had that, the Clearwater Gas calculates the annual adjusted dividend payment to return half of the net income less any debt service interest as a dividend to the city in the following year. Clearwater Gas's financial performance in fiscal year 1920 resulted in an annual adjusted dividend payment of $3.184867 million. An increase of $1,484,867 above the minimum annual dividend payment to the city, which was also an increase of $1.184867 million above the original fiscal year 2020-2021 budget, which was set at $2 million. Jay always stretches our budget a little bit above the minimum. In past years, the council has considered the reinvestment of a portion of the CGS excess dividend payments, when available, back to the system. For FY 2021, we're requesting a CIP program in the amount of $500,000 be established, entitled Clearwater CGS Vision 2035. A CGS Vision 2035 concept paper is attached, which outlines the proposed use of the funds to include business plan development and the potential rebranding of CGS as CGS Energy, with a focus on expansion of services into the solar PV, electric charging station, and other alternative energy sources, which are complementary with natural and propane gas services that we currently have. We do not anticipate the study will cost the full $500,000 we requested. However, we've included funding to help kickstart the implementation should the CGS Vision 2035 be found to be viable. We believe this proposal is consistent with the sustainability goals of the city and would support Greenprint's green energy and building goals, local power generation, renewable energy challenge, resilient infrastructure, as well as the green economy goal, by creating more capacity for installation and maintenance of green initiatives. We're recommending the City Council provide consensus approval for the allocation of $500,000 of the dividend payment to a capital fund project at first quarter to support the program, which we'd like to do prior to utilizing staff time to generate and advertise on an RFP for consulting services. This still provides $684,867 in additional dividend funds for the city's general fund budget. I'd like to go through a little visual presentation of this. Why did this not go forward?
Joel to the rescue.
You're on the last slide.
All right. Oh, yeah, it's on the last slide instead of the first slide. Okay. Thank you. All right, so this just depicts the numbers again. 1.7 million was the original, is the city's policy. We made 1.484 million more than that, so the total dividend to the city should be $3,184,867. And then we subtract the $2 million that was actually budgeted, which is the 1.184 million additional budget. This depicts a 30-year history since I've been here of our dividend. The first year I was here, we only returned like $200,000 to the city. We've been in the $3.5 to $4 million every year in recent times. We also transfer payments to the city in other forms. Besides the dividend, there's administrative transfer, city services transfer, franchise payment, and in the utility tax payment and other contributions, and this pie chart depicts what those are. So all total, we estimate this year we will have transferred $9.433 million to the city in total. This is a historical depiction of that history, which goes back to $2.5 million when I first got here, and we've been in the $10 million range in recent years. So If we had 1.184 million that is available, we're asking for $500,000 to be allocated to the CGS Vision 2035, leaving $684,000 for the city to allocate as it sees fit. We support today the green print, green energy and buildings goals. Natural gas emits less carbon dioxide than other fossil fuels, about 50% less than coal, 25% less than gasoline. We promote energy conservation direct use programs for homes and businesses, and we sell more efficient and lower operating cost appliances for customers. We also support the Green Print's transportation goals with a natural gas filling station where we fuel over 125 city vehicles each week, and many of them daily, and as well as some other vehicles there. We support methane reduction, climate change goals. We've replaced 100% of our cast iron and antiquated gas mains in the city of Clearwater. All the utilities in the country are working to do that. We're just very far ahead of all of them to have done all of it at this point in time. There's thousands of miles around the country that still need to be replaced.
And what does that ultimately result in?
It reduces the leakage of gas out of the pipes. The old antiquated pipes just are not well sealed. And the CGS Vision 2035 Green Expansion Program, we're proposing to investigate green energy sales expansion into the solar PV and batteries, electric charging stations, fuel cell technologies, gas air conditioning, and other green technologies. We think this is supportive of the Green Print program that was presented and allows us to do some of the infrastructure that we're hoping to accomplish as a result of that. This will allow us to hire energy consultants for business plan analysis, potentially staffing a sustainability engineer coordinator to set up the programs. We need to train our sales reps. We want to be able to do this at the same time we're out with customers and builders, and we will be developing green energy marketing materials, web and social media based, and potentially rebranding Clearwater Gas to CGS Energy so that we make more sense outside our city limits where customers receive only a bill for gas services today. And that's the billing statement revision. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have about this. I will also, I'll put up the, let me see. Here's the vision paper that enumerates doing those kind of activities here in the next few months
And we have
years to come.
those in our agenda.
And they're in your agenda, a little hard to read on a full size page.
Hard for those at home. Questions for Mr. Warrington?
Yeah, I just have a comment. On our one-on-ones, and we went over this. I'm really glad to see that you were going out into doing this. You know, any corporation has to change with the times, and I'm glad we're doing that. And everything that you've got listed here is, I think, a good first step to that. So thank you.
It will help us be supportive again of the Green Print program.
Yep.
Councilmember Beckman.
Well, I just want to preface this with, thank you for the one-on-one we had on Friday. I think it was over an hour long where we went over some of these things, so I had some questions answered. You know, while I applaud efforts to look at diversifying, one of the concerns I had was not to dilute not to use this as a dilution, as in keeping with our Green Print goals. It means that gas expansion cannot be going up like this while you're doing other green things. And so that your marketing would be, oh, well, we're exploring EV charging stations or this as we continue to expand that gas. I think the ultimate goal is we are going to reduce gas emissions, laying all that pipe, and increase green technology. That was the information we got from our expert. That's the future. That's what's best for our economy and our health, and for the planet. And so I would, I feel comfortable in allotting some amount of money for a study, but certainly I don't feel comfortable with $500,000 to begin to implement these things when we don't even know the results of, what an expert might suggest. And I would caution that, solar installation, EV installation, those kinds of things, that's already out there in the private sector, and that's going to be really competitive. And is that something that we want our public utility to be involved with? And so those are, some of my concerns. And the other part was on our Clearwater Gas System current green programs, some of the things are, sell more efficient and lower operating cost appliances, gas water heater and things like that. There are some appliances that are even more efficient that are electric, hybrid hot water heaters and induction stoves and things like that, that I would hope, would be a truth in advertising, would be on a website to consumers as well. And then for our second bullet point on natural gas emits less carbon dioxide than other fossil fuels, that's true, but at some point, the gas is going to be the primary emitter of carbon fuels. When the coal is used up and, Duke is done with that, then natural gas will be the number one polluter. And the same thing with, we've got on the request for use of excess dividend for gas air conditioning, that's not green. And so I'm questioning that on there as well. But I think it's worthy of a study, an amount of money for a study, but I don't think $500,000.
Well, I think we will have to see as time goes on how the economy changes and what the cost. A lot of those appliances that are more efficient cost a lot more to install, and the customer has to make a decision about how far they go on that.
On upfront, but payoff costs, definitely.
Absolutely. Everything we do, we always talk about what's the long-term payback, how soon can you pay this back. I believe the natural gas. If you look at the 10-year site plan for the state for the electric utilities, they propose more gas be used at the end of 10 years than is currently being used today. Even though they're ramping up solar and other services, the growth in the population and the need for energy in our area is growing, and it's particularly growing around the world in the developing countries. So the question is, how fast can solar and those kind of things pick up? And that's something that'll just have to be monitored. I mean, we'll have to look at that over time, and if the time comes where where it's bad for us to build the natural gas, then I think we'll have to deal with that.
Well, part of that is isn't it part of our Public Service Commission in the state of Florida doesn't require those energy efficiencies as much as other states do, and Duke only does the minimum, our service provider here in the state. They do more in Carolinas and other states because our state has such a low threshold. But that can change too.
Vice Mayor.
I kind of feel like I'm now the old 60 Minutes point counterpoint, because bottom line, I support 100% looking to diversify Clearwater Gas moving forward as a company. You have to be doing that, to be looking for. Now, I sat this past weekend in Philadelphia, and I'm looking at we're sitting there watching the Phillies play in their stadium. There's not enough solar panels available to power that stadium when it's in operation. Absolutely impossible. I mean, to think you could do it with that is just, the technology is not there. Natural gas, you can call it whatever you want. You can call it, but the truth is, it is greener than coal. It is greener. It's not as green as solar, but it's greener than coal. It's greener than crude oil. And when you're, Clearwater Gas is basically a private company that the city of Clearwater owns, and the citizens of the city of Clearwater are the stockholders. We benefit from owning that company, and it needs to be operated in competition with the private energy companies, plain and simple. And we've got to be able to market it as a greener option. It's not the greenest option, but it's a greener option. And you can call it the Antichrist, but it is a greener option. And like I said, that stadium doesn't operate and can't operate 100% on solar. It is absolutely impossible. The technology's not there. That doesn't mean the technology won't be there in 20 or 30 years, but it's not there today. Natural gas is an essential element to life in our country today. Plain and simple. And we own a gas company, and we need to maximize everything that gas company can do for the benefit of our citizens. And, until the technologies catch up and can supply all this totally green energy, which is not available today, we've got to maximize everything we can to do that. I mean, again, now I'm going to really go off on one here. Last Friday, our federal government raised taxes on natural gas. Their game plan is, if you can't, basically trying to tax it into oblivion. And the only people that hurts, the only people taxing natural gas at a higher rate hurts is the consumer. Everybody in this room is a consumer of natural gas. Plain and simple. We're all consumers of it. So it only hurts us. And I'm getting very tired of people in Washington. We've got attorneys you got lawyers that are up there in the Congress that, if they've ever been responsible for generating the revenue necessary to pay somebody's paycheck, it's been a long time, because they've forgotten what it takes. They don't understand how businesses operate. And it just floors me, because in Washington, it's like, oh, we can do $3.5 trillion more because we've got a printing press at the Treasury. We don't know how we're going to pay for it, but we can sure as hell print up $3.5 trillion to do all these things. It's people don't know how to operate business. They don't know how to, they don't think about these things, and it doesn't hurt anybody but the end use consumer. And it's, we need to wake up to that fact. But I want Clearwater Gas to flourish. It can flourish. It should flourish, because the citizens of Clearwater deserve it for it to flourish, because they're the beneficiaries of it. So I'm in 100% support of giving the $500,000 back to you to prepare for the future, and to continue to prepare for the future. Absolutely.
Councilmember Bunker.
I was happy to see that you're taking some first steps to make some transitions here. But they are baby steps. And we mentioned electric gas, and wasn't it last year or so that there was some just stunningly expensive costs that we had to supply to repair some gas-powered air conditioning systems in some of our buildings here? It was just like, jaw-dropping expense. So it was.
We don't have,
I don't think we own any gas.
the only gas we have is at the Morningside Rec Center. We put a gas air conditioning in there.
We haven't had to repair it.
And that has reduced our cost. That was looked at on a payback basis.
Well, I don't remember the exact,
I believe it was for the gas systems building, right?
Warranty there. I think it was.
Oh, you're talking about, yeah, the long-term warranty
Was
for
more
the,
than the unit.
yeah, well, the 10-year warranty for the keeping up the equipment was, but if you look at the payback on that for the gas system, it's considerable.
and I appreciate the fact that the gas system brings in money that the city needs to the budget. But eventually, we do need to make this transition. And although, maybe solar couldn't handle the power at the stadium, there was also a really nice cool breeze through those games too. So as we continue to improve these different technologies, we need to accept the fact that we have to change. And I'm not sure what the federal government is doing with the extra taxes that they're charging on natural gas, but I am assuming they're putting that money toward investing in what we are going to need to rely on in the coming decades. Bottom line, I appreciate the fact that you're taking these first steps. It is, a skeptic has a little problem thinking, well, are the people who are making their money off of this system really going to give anything more than lip service to supporting the alternative systems? And I certainly hope that as we move along, we will ramp up and do a better job of that.
Well, I think Sheridan and we will be giving you continuing reports of how we're doing with Greenprint and the programs under Greenprint. That's the $500 set aside is a CIP program to be used over time, but we have to come back to the council. Anytime we spend over $100,000 on anything, we'll be back in front of you explaining what we're doing and asking for your approval. So
this is a review. You'll be coming back for the potential money for this study?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. So there's no action required today?
Well, I think the Kayleen would like direction on the setting aside the CIP fund. So she's asking for direction on that. Hopefully we'll do that, so we don't have to come back for another agenda item the first of the new year.
And we will need to come back at a later point for the budget amendment that I believe the item mentioned. So if we are in fact interested in moving forward with some sort of study, we will have an eventual action item for the budget amendment itself, and then probably have one for the actual study, because it'll probably be over $100,000.
Well, I think we ought to move forward with the study. At this point, we don't know what we don't know. Mm-hmm. So I'm personally in favor of that. I don't know if there's consensus. There may not be consensus on the dollar. But does everyone agree that a study should be done?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And we will not spend the additional dollars unless it's in relation to something that we've discussed with you all. We have the CIP that we will bring forward will relate specifically to the study that will be done, which will then eventually come back to you all for review and approval. So if it's not in relation to that, we're not going to spend the money. It's going to come back to the general fund at some point.
Councilmember Beckman.
All right, so we're authorizing, or we're giving direction that you can search out someone for a study, right, of the feasibility of the concept paper. Okay, and then just for the counterpoint, there are just a couple of things. Is that, when we talk about maximizing what Clearwater Gas does for the benefit of citizens, bringing in money is one thing that Clearwater Gas does. Clearwater Gas also pollutes, contributes to climate change, contributes to global warming, may have an effect on red tide, is has an effect on health. And so those are also the consequences of increasing revenue from Clearwater Gas. If we diversify to these clean things, that's fine. But I just want to say that, that's part of what the bargain is if we are expanding gas emissions. It certainly is not in line with the green print goals that we've passed. And so I'm trying to weigh how we are wanting to increase carbon emissions and yet meet Clearwater green print goals. The other thing is, I think when we look at a stadium or a large venue or some big electricity sucker and think, wow, solar could never power that, we have battery technology that is here. So it's not just when the sun shines. There's incredible advances done in battery storage. And then if we're talking about raising taxes on natural gas at a federal level, perhaps those dollars, and I haven't done any research, but perhaps those dollars are put into a green fund so that we do have a commitment as a nation to pursue green technologies, to reduce our carbon emissions, to address equity in utilities and service with poor families who might not be able to afford solar. And so there are lots of positives that can come from an increased tax on carbon emissions. And then and I think that was enough as far as, our counterpoint from 60 Minutes, which I'm old enough to remember. Was it Shana Alexander and Charles Kuralt or somebody? Yeah, I don't.
As long as it doesn't go to Saturday Night Live with point counterpoint.
Oh, yeah, Jamie Hurts.
I have to respond and say though that this country, the United States, has made more progress in reducing the greenhouse gases than any country on earth, and it's been because we've been converting to natural gas over the past 17 years. Now, it will swing.
In 2025, and I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but with Duke and our service area, it's expected in 2025 the grid will be much cleaner than natural gas with Duke in our service area. So it's coming.
We'll see.
5.2.
Accept Ordinance 536, an interlocal agreement franchise with the town of Bel Air in order for Clearwater Gas System to continue to provide natural gas service to the citizens of Bel Air and adopt Resolution 21-31. Ms. Pettit.
Good morning, Christy Pettit, Business Development Marketing Manager for Clearwater Gas. I appreciate the passion on the dais about our industry. I really do. I'm here to ask for y'all to renew our 30-year franchise agreement that expired with the town of Bel Air last year, but due to COVID, they waited to renew it this year. We were on a month-to-month. They have now gone to a 15-year franchise agreement term with the additional 15-year at the end of that 15 to renew. This is standard for most of our franchise agreements that we are renewing with the other cities. I'll take any questions.
Any questions? Councilmember Beckman.
Just for education.
Sure.
So in this legislative text, it says that there's a franchise, the town of Bel Air has a 5.5% of the total bill franchise fee. That's what they charge their customers, and that money stays in Bel Air?
Yes. So all the gas customers, we provide the money we make from them. We give that 5.5% back to the town of Bel Air, who, by the way, as of 8:30 this morning, have 576 active gas customers in that town.
Okay, so we collect it and then we reimburse them 5.5% of the bill?
Correct.
Okay.
We get the same thing from Spectrum
Yes.
or other utilities.
They elected not to do the 6%, which is what most of the other cities that we serve get asked for the 6%. It was 5.5 the last 5 years of their contract, and they've again wanted to keep it at 5.5.
And why do we care? Why is that in there,
The
the 5.5%?
just so they are aware of how much gas we use, then they can count on that kind of revenue. And yes, of course, they can get that revenue from Duke as well, but when they have more gas customers, it's better for them. And they're the largest city where we have the most gas generators.
Could they
And-
make it like 10%, 8%? Are they free to make it whatever they'd like?
That's a Ms. Aiken question, I believe.
And Miss Mahoney is coming to the microphone.
Oh, wonderful.
Laura, if you could come up here where there's the mic,
There's no mic there.
please.
Good morning. Laura Mahoney, Assistant City Attorney. Ouch. We have a clause in all of our franchise agreements whereby if the franchise fee rises for one city or town, the others can request the same. So right now, the maximum is 6. So that's as high as anyone is going right now. But they chose to keep it at 5.5%.
And is there a reason why businesses don't have that franchise fee?
Businesses?
They do
There-
pay a franchise fee.
Industrial
Oh,
customers.
industrial. We, most of our, I think all of our contracts have the non-industrial exemption. I don't understand if that's for a labor statistic reason or what, but there's no industrial customers in Bel Air, obviously.
Chuck?
Actually, it's about half of our cities have industrial exemptions. We in our city have an exemption for interruptible customers. So like the CNG station is interruptible, General Electric, the General Electric plant is interruptible, and so they don't pay a franchise on that. But in overall in the city of Clearwater, we do a 6% equivalent franchise, and when you back out the industrials, it works out to about 5.6 or something like that. It's pretty close. But there are some cities charge industrial customers a franchise. Oldsmar is one of them. We argue long and hard with Oldsmar about doing that, but they've grown accustomed to that money, and they want to continue it. And their biggest industrial customer kind of threatened to maybe leave the city of Oldsmar if they continued it, but they haven't left yet. So that's a negotiating factor. We always try to put the industrial exemption in because those customers are very privy to going wherever it's cheaper to operate, and it's better to have those industrial customers in the city in our service territory.
But we could charge a small franchise fee and put it into a green fund or something like that, couldn't we?
Every city has that ability. They could bifurcate it to 6% for the residentials and so much for commercials or whatever. That would be an opportunity. And we've talked to a couple cities about that over time. They've just not decided to do that.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions or comments? All right, we'll hear that on Thursday.
Thank y'all.
6.1.
Approve a one-year renewal term for the professional services agreement between the City of Clearwater and Evernorth Direct Health LLC, formerly Cigna On-Site Health LLC, to provide on-site health clinic services to employees, family members, and retirees who are covered by the City of Clearwater Health Insurance for a not-to-exceed amount of $1,721,400, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Ms. Paul.
Good morning, Mayor and council members. This first agenda item is a request for a one-year renewal for professional services agreement between the city and Evernorth Direct Health, which is formerly Cigna On-Site Health, to provide on-site health clinic services to employees, family members, and retirees who are covered by the City of Clearwater's health insurance, not to exceed $1.7 million, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute the same. The one-year renewal term will begin October 1st and end on September 30th, 2022. Evernorth Direct Health will continue to operate the Employee Health Center and provide on-site medical and prescription drug services to include primary health care, risk assessments, acute and urgent care, immunizations, examinations and screenings, pharmaceutical dispensing, disease management, primary care, pre-employment physicals, COVID-19 testing, and vaccines. The Employee Health Center also provides telemed visits, both telephonically and virtually. The Employee Health Center also promotes wellness management by assisting patients gain incentive dollars through screenings and claim management. Any questions?
Any questions? I believe the clinic's been a tremendous benefit to our staff and is very cost effective, so I support this, obviously. It's been a great thing that sets us apart. Consent?
Yes.
And
All
thank
right.
you for the one-on-ones.
You're welcome.
6.2.
Authorize the funding of city medical insurance for the administrative services agreement between the city and Cigna Healthcare under a self-insured funding arrangement for the period January 1, 2022 through December 31st, 2022 at a total not to exceed $22.5 million to be funded by city budgeted funds, payroll deductions of employees, retiree premiums, and then estimated $1.7 million of central insurance fund reserves. Ms. Paul.
I'm here this morning to review our 2022 medical plan renewal. Just a little background on our current plan. The medical plan is self-funded, and the city pays claims when the plan is used. Over the past 5 years, claims per month per employee have increased by an average of 5.8%. The city has continued to perform better than the national average of 6% and the Florida average. For plan year 2021, the city had a 0% increase, and that was due to a lower plan spend because of COVID-19. The projections for 2022 called for a 5.3% increase, but we are recommending the suggestion put forth by the Benefits Committee that we're going to have a 2.6% increase with additional funds coming from prior year reserve accumulation if needed. The city will continue to pay 100% of single coverage, 75% of employee plus one, and 68% of family coverage. The current calendar year budget is $22.5 million, and this figure includes city budgeted funds, payroll deductions from employees, retiree contributions, and an estimate of $1.7 million of central insurance fund reserves, again, if needed. We continue to see cancer and heart disease as our top catastrophic cost driver, while diabetes remains the highest overall pharmaceutical spend and chronic cost driver. 44% of our members suffer from an identified chronic health condition, like diabetes, obesity, hypertension, and high cholesterol. COVID claims for 2020 accounted for $561,000 in costs. We are moving into our third year utilizing the Motivate Me program. This program focuses on wellness and provides incentives to employees when they participate in wellness screenings, preventative care activities, and health coaching. Employees can earn up to $200 in incentives annually. We're very happy with the participation in our Motivate Me program. In 2020, there were 800 wellness screenings and 1,050 preventative screenings. Screenings with an average incentive earned by each employee that participated of $142. Just recently, we found out that the city is one of 6 winners of the Cigna Wellbeing Award, and this is recognizing the time, money, and resources spent on the well-being initiatives for our employees. Since January of 2021, we have 197 employees that have redeemed $29,000 in incentive rewards, and those are just the people that have redeemed. I'm sure there's a lot more that just haven't done that yet. For 2020, we just recently eliminated our health coach at the clinic due to underutilization. But we have 2 new programs for employees. Food Smart is the name of the first program, and it focuses on the foundational element of health, which is diet. The employee registers for a telenutrition appointment and completes the online paperwork. Then they have a personalized televisit with a registered dietitian. The employee will receive a nutrition assessment, and the dietitian will assist with utilization of the Food Smart app in order to use the tools to improve nutritional understanding and encourage healthy eating. The dietitian can recommend a customized diet. There are immunity-boosting recipes on the app, and there are also food discounts for major grocers on meal kits. The second program we added is called Amada. And Amada is a digital care program that empowers people to achieve their health goals through sustainable lifestyle changes. The program focuses on assisting employees that have existing health problems that may lead to being diagnosed with diabetes. Once an employee is enrolled in the Amada program, he or she is provided with a scale and an interactive app, including a health coach to assist with making better eating choices, tracking meals, and exercise. An employee can earn a one-time $100 incentive once enrolled in this plan. And another benefit is the city is not charged for this plan unless the employee improves and loses weight. So it's kind of an outcomes-based program. There's our health center. We continue to see penetration increase at the health center year after year, and our satisfaction survey has reached 100%. We continue to see our employees utilizing the health center as well. We also continue to experience annual savings and return on investment as we shift costs through the health center. The savings are realized through network replacement, lab replacement, brand drug avoidance, as well as flu shot replacement. Our renewal recommendations is that we continue on our current open access network. We maintain our current plan design and continue to promote wellness via Motivate Me and encourage preventative screenings and utilization of the Employee Health Center. I can take any questions, and we also have Sean Fleming here from the Garing Group to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Councilmember Beckman?
It's really just a comment. I utilize our wellness center for the last over a year and a half since I was elected, and have been totally thrilled with it. People are friendly. I've taken advantage of the wellness initiatives, and I think it's great. And as it's self-funded, I think we need to make sure that everybody does their best, because it comes out of our, those premiums are dependent on how we all collectively do. So I appreciate all your efforts. It's great.
Any other questions? Consent?
Yep.
Thank you. 6.3.
Approve the amendment to the collective bargaining agreement as negotiated between City of Clearwater and Communications Workers of America, Local 3179, CWA, for fiscal year 2021-2022, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same as Poyer.
Good morning, Jennifer Poyer, Human Resources Director. The current collective bargaining agreement between the city and the CWA expires in September of 2023. However, during our strategic planning sessions with the council back in May, we discussed the early implementation of the minimum wage, and we have successfully negotiated that with the CWA, and that is the item that's before you today. The update includes updates to job classifications, job descriptions, and adjustments to our pay ranges, and provides for a one-time compression adjustment for any employee that is currently making less than $20 an hour. Any employee who is below the minimum rate of pay in the new pay plan will be increased to the minimum prior to the application of their current contract agreements, such as longevity and merit increases. Increases to the minimum and merit increase will not exceed a total of 3% for the fiscal year of 2022 unless it's required in order to bring them up to the minimum. The amendment also includes adding the Juneteenth holiday, which was also previously approved by Council in August of 2021. The total estimated costs of the implementation were included in the proposed budget for the fiscal year 2022.
Any questions for Ms. Poyer? Councilmember Albritton?
Yeah, one of the things on our one-to-ones that we talked about was the compression adjustment. And this is a one-time compression adjustment, so each individual person can come in, and how does that work?
So what we decided on, and what was approved by council and then also approved through the ratification of this, is that we will maintain their current range penetration that they have right now, so long as they make less than $20 an hour. So it'll be automatic, and this will be done effective 10/1. So anybody that is below the $20 an hour will get moved into the same range penetration that they're currently in right now.
Okay.
we've distributed, the CWA has those individual employee adjustments as well, so that we'll be working with them and also working with the departments to make sure, because it's a snapshot and this is a complicated process, but we've got a lot of people that are working through this with us to make sure that those compression adjustments are done appropriately.
Other questions? Consent?
Yep.
7.1.
Approve a one-year agreement with the Juvenile Welfare Board, JWB, and City of Clearwater for funding youth programs, and approve the first quarter budget amendment of $394,095 in Special Program G2107 JWB Youth Programming, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same as Clayton.
Good morning. Sandy Clayton, Recreation Division Manager for the Parks and Recreation Department. In front of you this morning is our annual agreement with the Juvenile Welfare Board to fund an after-school and summer camp programs at the Ross, Norton, and North Greenwood Recreation Centers. These programs are designed to help children make healthy lifestyle choices, achieve academic success, and increase social and leadership skills. The grant helps fund the staff, equipment, and supplies, as well as qualified tutors. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Clayton? Well, it's a wonderful partnership. I want to thank JWB and recognize the benefit to our youth. So thank you for all you do, Ms. Clayton. Consent?
Yep.
7.2.
Approve the agreement between the Martin Luther King Jr. Neighborhood Family Center, Inc., MLKNFC, and the City of Clearwater for the recreational, educational, and social programming at the North Greenwood Recreation and Aquatics Complex and North Greenwood Library from October 1, 2021 through September 30, 2026, with 1 5-year extension, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same as Clayton.
Along with the Juvenile Welfare Board, another outstanding partner that we work with to provide services to the North Greenwood community is the Clearwater Neighborhood Family Center, or the MLKNFC. This agreement extends the partnership for another 5 years with an additional 5-year renewal option. The CNFC is housed at the North Greenwood Recreation and Aquatic Complex and provides services to the community such as after-school and summer camp programs for elementary-age children, parenting classes, and assistance with food or rent, family educational programs, and much more. Most recently, the CNFC orchestrated a youth explosion teen conference where our very own Mayor Hibbard was the star of a murder mystery. The Parks and Recreation Department is very proud of our partnership with Terry Jones and the CNFC, and we look forward to the continuation of this agreement. Any questions?
Any questions? Fortunately, my demise was greatly exaggerated. Consent?
Yeah.
All right, 7.3.
Approve Third Amendment to lease agreement between Clearwater Golf Associates, Inc. and City of Clearwater to provide assistance of $58,100 to partially offset the cost of installing reclaimed water at the Landings Golf Course, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Halios.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. Jim Halios, Director of Parks and Recreation. The item that we have before you today is for a amendment to our lease agreement with the Landings Golf Course. As you may or may not know, the Landings has been required to hook up to reclaimed water. So they've worked through a couple different scenarios. Actually came to Swift Mud to seek a grant to pay for this, but the grant would require an extension to the lease, bringing it to a 20-year lease. So after discussion among staff, we decided that our best bet would moving forward be to provide some assistance to the operators of the golf course to help with this hookup. Again, at the end of the day, it is our property. We maintain the infrastructure and we own it. So allowing an offset here we feel would be proper. And also speaking to Senate Bill 64, and I believe Mr. Gardner can speak to that when he comes up, we are going to need to look at some alternative resources through our Parks and Recreation Department on how we can help disperse some of the reclaimed water into the area. And so this is a great opportunity to do that, and I'd be happy to answer it.
Questions for Mr. Halios? Mr. Gardner, do you want to speak to the need to dispose of additional reclaimed?
Rich Gardner, Public Utilities Director. Good morning, Council. Senate Bill 64 is requiring us to basically cease surface water discharge of our wastewater treatment plant effluent One of the biggest solutions we're coming up with is expanding the reclaim system. And the landings is a prime property. The reclaim system already extends into the landings. They just need to pick it up from there. So it's a great opportunity.
There's a few things I want to get clarified offline this week, so I don't want to put this item on consent. Okay? 8.1.
Approve a purchase order to TriTech Software Systems of San Diego, California for the renewal of TriTech software support in the amount of $198,451.06 from October 1, 2021 through September 30, 2022, pursuant to City Code of Ordinances, Section 2.5631A, single source, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Major Dalton.
Major Dalton, Police Department. The Police Department transitioned to our current computer-aided dispatch system in 2007. We closed that project out in 2009. This is our yearly maintenance agreement that we've brought into every year since that time. It's basically for the software maintenance for the system, the automatic vehicle locator, as well as the interface to our RMS system and a couple other systems that we have. This renewal does reflect an approximate 5% increase over last year's. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Easy.
All right, consent?
Yes.
Yep.
9.1.
Approve the final plat for Angelfish, whose physical address is 25400 U.S. Highway 19 North, located on the west side of U.S. Highway 19 North, approximately 1/2 mile south of Enterprise Road. To carry on Mr. Horn's tradition, I'm going to ask you to be kind to our first timer today, Kyle Vaughn from our engineering department.
Good morning, Council.
Vaughn.
Kyle Vaughn, Engineering Department. This plat consists of one lot, which contains approximately 4.7 acres. It was approved through DRC May 6th, 2021, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Questions? Council, or Vice Mayor?
This is, this like a little over 4 acres, but this has an existing building on it, correct?
Yes, I actually think it's 6 buildings.
Yeah, but are they looking at tearing them down and redoing?
Yes, those would be demolished.
Wow, okay.
Single-story structure will be built.
Do we know what's going to be replacing it?
It's a single-story furniture store. Rooms to go is the plan.
Okay.
Oh, that's where it's going.
There we go.
Other questions? All right, consent?
Yep.
9.2.
Award invitation to bid 46-21 to Covenant Property Investors LLC. Approve the contract for purchase of real property by the city of Clearwater, Florida, by the by and between the city and Covenant Property Investors LLC for the city to sell to Covenant a parking condominium containing 450 public parking spaces, more particularly described as condominium unit pub of North Beach Plaza Condominium, a condominium, according to the declaration of condominium thereof, recorded in Official Records Book 19444, page 145, and any amendments thereto, and the plat thereof recorded in Condominium Plat Book 159, page 191, of the public records of Pinellas County, Florida, together with its undivided share in the common elements pertinent thereto, located at 490 Poinsettia Street, Clearwater, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same, together with all other instruments required to effect closing. Mr. Mahoney.
Morning, Council. Tom Mahoney, Engineering Department. So on June 17th of this year, the City Council declared the parking unit surplus for the purpose of sale through bid number 46-21, whereby the successful bidder was required to meet the terms set by the City Council. Per the City Charter, real property declared surplus shall be sold to the party submitting the highest competitive bid above the appraised value, who meets the terms set by the City Council.
All qualifying bids were required to meet a bid price exceeding $12 million. The city obtained 2 independent appraisals. One came in at $11.16 million, and the other was at $13.245 million. The city received 2 bids. Both met the requirements listed above. Covenant Property Investors, LLC, submitted the successful qualifying bid with a proposed purchase price of $12.5 million. Consistent with the bid requirements above, the staff recommends the approval of this contract. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Mahoney? Councilmember Hamilton.
Probably not Mr. Mahoney, but Ms. Aiken, do we expect any representatives from any of the affected parties to be showing up Thursday night? I mean, do we need to put should we put this on consent and expect it to be pulled off, or should we just hold it off of consent?
If you put it on consent, I expect it to be pulled off. We have been contacted from a representative of the other bidder. So I anticipate, I believe they've told us that they will be appearing. So you can either not put it on or put it on and know that they will take it off.
Other questions or comments? Well, let's just leave it off consent then. We'll see you Thursday night.
Excellent.
9.3.
Approve the request from city staff to vacate 2 drainage and utility easements that were retained as part of Ordinance 6879-01 of the City of Clearwater, Florida, as recorded in Official Records Book 11701, page 1155 of the Public Records of Pinellas County, and pass Ordinance 9496-21 on first reading. Mr. Mahoney.
Council, this was formerly right-of-way that was vacated with the retained easement when they had the agreement with the Mediterranean Village Development. After that, it was redone to the Nolan, which currently resides there now, and we no longer need these easements for utilities. There's nothing in the easements. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Questions? So, Mr. Mahoney, I understand the northern hatched blue area, the one that goes across Town Lake.
That was Pierce Street prior to Town Lake. For some reason, traditionally, the previous person in the real estate position found it necessary or not. He always retained easements over right-of-ways for whatever purpose. Now, when we evaluate these vacations of easements or right-of-ways, we determine whether we need them or whether we don't. If we have utilities in them, we retain the easement. If we don't, we just give it up. So this is basically just a housekeeping item.
But we're not giving away ownership of that property.
No, we still own
across
that.
the lake.
We still own that.
Right, okay. All right, any questions on that? 9.4.
Approve the request from the owner of property addressed 1496 Rose Tree Corked, Clearwater, to vacate the east 6 feet of a platted 10-foot drainage easement and utility easement located along the west 10 feet of Lot 1 of Rose Tree Court, according to the plat thereof as recorded in Plat Book 79, page 20 of the Public Records of Pinellas County, Florida, and pass Ordinance 9506-21 on first reading. Mr. Mahoney.
Tom Mahoney Engineering. This is a rear lot line easement where there's a pool deck slightly encroaching into a drainage and utility easement. We do not have any utilities in it. There are some minor drainage swales back there, and we'll be retaining a portion of that for that. So staff has determined that we don't need the entire 10 feet, so I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Mahoney? Vice Mayor?
I'm not trying to getting anybody thrown under a bus here, but as you look at the aerial photo of this, everyone else on the west side of Rose Tree Court, their pools don't encroach into this easement, whereas this lot does. How was that approved when it was initially permitted to be built? How did that happen?
That's an excellent question.
I'm not trying to...
No, that's okay. I have an answer for you.
prior to 72, I believe, engineering was not in the review process for these pools. We currently now, they come through our department and we review them to make sure that they're not bumping into any of the easement encroachments. There are quite a lot of pools in the city of Clearwater that have decks within easements, and that was because of the review process.
I'm just curious because that one does, but everybody else has stayed away from it, so it's kind of like,
Yeah.
so, okay. That answers that question.
Anything else on that? 10.1.
Approve the annexation, initial future land use map designation of residential low and initial zoning atlas designation of low medium density residential district for certain residential real property with the legal description attached hereto as Exhibit A, and pass ordinances 9481-21, 9482-21, and 9483-21 on first reading. Mr. Brotherton.
Thank you. Kyle Brotherton, Planning and Development. So this voluntary annexation petition involves a property with a protected address consisting of one parcel of land which is occupied by a single-family dwelling. The applicant is requesting annexation in order to receive sanitary sewer and solid waste service from the city, and the applicant has paid the required sewer impact and assessment fees and is aware of the additional costs to extend to the city's sewer. And upon annexation, solid waste will be provided.
Any questions? 10.2.
Approve the annexation initial future land use map designation of residential low and initial zoning atlas designation of low medium density residential district for 1721 Brentwood Drive, and pass ordinances 9493-21, 9494-21, and 9495-21 on first reading. Mr. Brotherton.
Thank you. So this voluntary annexation petition involves a 0.288 acre property consisting of one parcel of land occupied by a single-family dwelling. The applicant is requesting annexation in order to receive sanitary sewer and solid waste service from the city. The applicant has paid the required sewer impact and assessment fees and is aware of the additional cost to extend to the city's sewer system. And again, solid waste will be provided upon annexation.
Any questions? 10.3.
Approve the annexation initial future land use map designations of US 19 Regional Center and water, and initial zoning atlas designations of US 19 and preservation districts for two unaddressed parcels located between 2975 Gulf to Bay Boulevard and Old Tampa Bay, and pass ordinances 9490-21, 9491-21, and 9492-21 on first reading. Mr. Brotherton.
Thank you. This voluntary annexation petition involves a 2.49 acre property, of which there's approximately 0.62 acres of uplands and 1.87 acres of submerged lands. Property is comprised of two parcels, and records show that a portion of the western parcel was previously annexed into the city. The applicant owns 2975 Gulf Bay Boulevard, abutting to the north, and is requesting annexation so that these additional parcels are fully within the city's jurisdiction for future redevelopment of the entire site. The property is currently vacant and being used as a construction staging area for the property to the east that is currently under construction. Connection to water and sewer is not being requested at this time, but it is anticipated in the future, and the applicant is aware that the required sewer and water impact and assessment fees must be paid in full prior to connection, and of any additional cost to extend to the city's sewer and water lines.
Any questions? Councilmember Beckman.
I have a question about the aerial photograph and these submerged lands. So does that mean that an individual owns those dotted yellow lines out into the water?
Correct.
And then who regulates what can be built or done with that property?
Well, submerged lands really have no development rights, so no one could develop on that water or use it for density or intensity purposes for the uplands portions.
Okay, so why do they care that they own that if
They
they
could
can't?
put a dock
You can
out
build
there,
a
though.
dock and
It gives you the right to put the dock
Riparian
out
rights.
further.
And this
Okay,
is also,
but not this far, not where the boundary is, way out. The
No,
dock
no.
isn't gonna go out that far, is it? Yes?
It
No?
could,
it could.
as long as it's not in a navigable waterway.
I believe that's correct, yes.
And a lot of times, these properties are very shallow. So it would allow them, it would be an expensive dock.
But does the state regulate that, or does the city regulate how far a dock can go out and all that?
believe dock permits are through the county as well as the city.
County.
We have review, and then they have to go through Pinellas County as well.
And can I assume somebody else owns in between those two?
From what we have determined, it's state water, so it'd be, I believe the state of Florida would have any sort of jurisdictional control over those.
Okay.
That water that's in the middle of that U-shape.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? 9.4.
10.4, correct.
I need 10.4. All the
Approve
things.
amendments to the Community Development Code revising Section 3-909 outdoor cafes located within public rights of way, and Appendix A, Schedule of Fees, Rate, and Charges, and pass Ordinance 9487-21 on first reading. Ms. Clayton.
Good morning, Gina Clayton, Planning and Development. With the indefinite closure of Cleveland Street to vehicular traffic, we need to make some code amendments to legalize that outdoor dining that's out in the travel lanes. So this ordinance will do essentially 5 things. The first and most important one is that we will actually allow outdoor seating in those travel lanes. And this ordinance will also clarify that one has to have a BTR for the business that it serves to have the outdoor cafe. Also, that it was unclear whether or not you had to renew the outdoor cafe ordinance yearly, because we need to make sure that you have insurance yearly. So we have clarified that in the code, and then we have integrated a reduced fee for those renewals. And then lastly, we've added a provision which will state that you have to keep the area clean in the outdoor dining area around it, and you can't use city waste receptacles for your cafe garbage. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Ms. Clayton? Councilmember Albritton.
Yes, Ms. Clay, this really doesn't just affect downtown, does it? Is this a citywide ordinance?
The ordinance applies to the tourist district and downtown, because that is the only place where we allow outdoor dining in the public right of way.
Oh, okay.
We allow outdoor dining on private property, but this regulates it in the public right of way.
Well, I know that one restaurant that I do go to that's not downtown, it's kind of out toward countryside. We're having some issues with the city, I guess because they had made an outside dining area like everybody else, but they did take some parking to do it. So it might have been a something that that came up that they needed to. I really don't know what the problem was.
That's pretty much what the issue is. During COVID, we allowed flexibility to accommodate
Okay.
outdoor dining, pretty much wherever people could do it. And now we have asked them to come back in compliance, since the governor has stated that the emergency is over. And so that property owner, if he wants to keep using parking spaces, he needs to have excess parking to meet the code in order to do that. And I'm not really sure where he is on whether he's going to bring an application for it or if he has another area that he can use.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we're clearly not going to finish in 17 minutes, so we're going to take a 8-minute recess. We'll reconvene the work session. We are on item 11.1.
Sorry. Authorize an increase to contract 900566 and approve the service amendment agreement addendum to Convergent Technologies Ltd. Of Schaumburg, Illinois, in the amount of $375,000 for a new not-to-exceed amount of $881,392.22 for the period January 5, 2019 through January 3, 2024, pursuant to request for proposal 32-18, building security hardware and software, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Mayor.
Dan Mayer, Information Technology Director. Mayor and Council, this is, Convergent provides our physical hardware, our physical security for our structures. We had a number of large projects that finished up during the beginning of this service period, the transfer station, gas administration building, and the emergency operations center, as well as some work at Clearwater Marina and the utilities administration. We have a number of new builds that we anticipate being started and expending costs on, and is still within this time period. Fire stations 46, 47, the police substation number 3, and some of the public utilities buildings at various locations. So hence the increase, we'll have to add this. This is one of those ongoing costs, and it is related to our security efforts.
Questions for Mr. Mayor? Consent?
Yes.
Yep.
11.2.
Approve a contract with GeoNexus Technologies LLC of Ann Arbor, Michigan for software licensing and maintenance of field mobility software and integration services in the amount of $286,831.20 for the period October 1, 2021 through September 30, 2024, pursuant to City Code of Ordinances 2.5631A, single source, to authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Mayor.
Mayor, Council, this provides, GeoNexus is a third-party provider. It provides enhanced GIS interface for our field users with our asset management system, OAM. It's used in urban forestry, stormwater, utilities, so they can do lookups and creation of service orders in the field. This is an ongoing cost. We will be replacing some of our asset management tools in various departments over the next 3 years, so this software hopefully will go away during that time period.
Questions? Consent?
Yes. Yep.
11.3.
Authorize a purchase order with Verizon Wireless for basic cellular, smartphones, and mobile data services in an amount of $225,000 for the period of October 1, 2021 through January 19, 2022, pursuant to Clearwater Code of Ordinances, Section 2.5631C, piggyback, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Mayor.
Mayor, Council, this is a renewal of Verizon Wireless. You'll note that the time frame is quite short. During the pandemic, the Department of Management Services, which is where all the cellular contracts for governments we piggyback off of, they're behind. So they've negotiated a new contract. It's not posted on their site yet. So we're riding the existing contract through January. I'll be back before that time frame for the renewal of the balance, which is another $400,000. So the normal spend for this annually is $650,000.
Questions? Consent?
Yeah.
11.4.
Approve a purchase order to Oracle America, Inc. of Redwood Shores, California, for software maintenance and in the amount, in a not-to-exceed amount of $303,229.47 for term October 1, 2021 through September 30, 2022, pursuant to City Code of Ordinances 2.5631A, single source, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Mayor.
Mayor, Council, this is an annual renewal of Oracle software. This should be the last year at this dollar amount. PeopleSoft will go away, and we should be not have a need for the archive piece any longer. We have to write some reports, so we need PeopleSoft Online to do calculation of pension and averaging of salary over people's 5-year period. So by this time next year, hopefully this will be about half as much.
Any questions? Consent?
Yes.
12.1.
Authorize a purchase order to Tencarva Machinery Co. LLC, DBA Hudson Pump and Equipment Associates, Inc. of Hillsborough, North Carolina, for additional smart cover systems associated with wastewater system manhole sewage level monitoring equipment in the not-to-exceed amount of $49,912 pursuant to Clearwater Code of Ordinances 2.5631A, single source, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Gardner.
Morning, Council. Rich Gardner, Public Utilities Director. The item before you today is a purchase order for additional smart cover systems installation and maintenance. This equipment is used to monitor water levels in sewers and help us prevent sanitary sewer overflows as well as customer backups. Installation of this equipment is part of a recent settlement agreement between the city and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Purchase order is with Hudson Pump, is for a not-to-exceed amount of $49,912. I'm asking for you to authorize the purchase order, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Gardner? Councilmember Albrecht.
How many manholes can you get for the $49,912?
I believe it's 7. I don't know. Actually, I have the purchase order here. It's 10 smart cover systems.
Wow, they're expensive.
But they've been working. So far we've prevented 17 SSOs with the ones we bought last year.
Yeah,
So they seem to be working.
good.
And for those at home, an SSO is?
Sanitary sewer overflow. Anytime water overflows the system, it could be sewage, it could be reclaimed water, but we need to report it to the city and they regulate us on it. We report it to the state, sorry.
Councilmember Beckman and then the Vice Mayor.
So these are pretty expensive, and do you have any idea, ballpark, how many sewer covers we have in the city? Hundreds, right?
Thousands.
Okay,
Off the top of my head, 5,000 plus.
okay. But if we had to target ones that are more susceptible to an overflow, how many more would you like to see outfitted with this technology? Or replaced, to have them replace the covers, ideally?
Yeah, we're learning a little bit. So what we used to do is, there'd be an overflow and then we'd come and clean the pipe. But these covers allow us to monitor the water level and then proactively we can clean the pipe. So, I think we need to get a little experience where we should be monitoring. So I can't give you a number. It would probably be in the hundreds.
Okay, and then if you used them, so if we're using it on this area, let's say it's Main Street, and it indicates that there's some blockage, it needs to be cleaned to prevent this SSO, so we clean that section of the pipe. Can we pick up that cover now and move it to another location and kind of rotate them, or is that labor intensive and not practical?
We could do that. What we would do is we'll monitor how the cover's working. So we get one instance where the cover tells us, okay, clean the pipe.
Yeah.
Now, a year later, we haven't needed to clean the pipe, then we might move the cover. However, looking at some of the data, there's one area where we've cleaned the pipe 4 or 5 times.
Within 1 year? Or
Yeah, within less than a year. So we're gonna keep that particular cover there, because it warns us. But we'll monitor all the covers to see if maybe we need to move them. If we do have an SSO in an area where we don't have a cover, then we'll probably move one of the covers to that area to help us be proactive.
So does it happen often that a pipe needs to be cleaned multiple times a year? I mean, what would
Sure.
cause one pipe to build
In
up?
an area that has a lot of grease, like a restaurant row, very often they need, even though they have grease traps, a little bit comes over. So very often they need to be cleaned. If an area that has a lot of sand, like maybe a beach area, that might need to be cleaned more than once a year. So we clean the sewers on basically a 5-year cycle, plus we have hot spots, areas that we know we gotta clean more than that 5-year cycle.
Okay, great. And is it labor intensive to move those covers?
No.
Okay.
Vice Mayor?
Actually, that pretty much answered my question, because we don't need these covers on every single manhole cover. You strategically place them through past experience. This is an area that tends to show a little bit, so let's put one here. Let's say we don't need them on every single manhole cover in the city.
Right. And like one cover on one end of the sewer can really monitor quite a distance and a number of manholes.
Any other questions? 12.2.
Authorize a purchase order to Rexel USA, Inc. of Dallas, Texas, for Allen Bradley equipment, parts, and maintenance in an annual not-to-exceed amount of $150,000 for the term of October 17, 2021 through October 16, 2022, with the option for 2 one-year renewals at the city's discretion pursuant to Clearwater Code of Ordinances 2.5631A, single source, and authorize appropriate officials to execute the same. Mr. Gardner.
Rich Gardner, Public Utilities Director. The item before you today is a purchase order for Allen Bradley Programmable Logic Controllers, or PLCs, parts and maintenance. This equipment is used to control process equipment in our water and wastewater facilities. The purchase order is with Rexel USA and is for a not-to-exceed amount of $150,000. It covers a period of October 17th, 21 through October 16th, 22, with the option for 2 one-year renewals. I'm asking you for you to authorize a purchase order, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Vice Mayor?
This is always the fun time of year when all these annual contracts come due. No, I don't have a question on this. This one can go on consent. Did we put 12.1 on consent?
I didn't ask you. I was going to ask you after this one to put them both on consent.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Any other questions? 13.1. Thanks, Mr. Gardner.
Approve an interlocal agreement between the City of Clearwater and the Community Redevelopment Agency to provide staffing and administrative services for the CRA, provided for the reimbursement of certain expense by the CRA to the city, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Dell.
Mayor, Council, this is the companion item to your discussion this morning with the CRA. Recommend your approval.
Any questions for Mr. Dunk?
No.
Consent?
Yep.
14.1.
Amend the Clearwater Community Development Code, Article 3, Development Standards, Section 3-204, which relates to accessory uses and structures standards. Add subsection I, which will allow for the keeping of chickens as an accessory use in certain residential zoning districts, and provide standards for associated accessory structures. Pass Ordinance 9488-21 on first reading. This is Assistant City Attorney Matthew Middich. This is his first appearance before you. He's been with us 4 months, and he drafted this ordinance, so he gets to present it.
And do we have to be easy on him too?
Nah.
Okay.
He had to get.
This is an interesting first swipe.
It is.
Very unusual for sure.
You must not like you very well.
Oh, it's a fun one.
I thought it was a great challenge for a new, energetic young attorney.
I enjoyed it as well. It was very interesting, very different than what I typically handle on a day-to-day basis. So, Assistant Attorney Matthew Middich, on behalf of the City of Clearwater, as well as the chickens, I suppose, due to strong public interest, the council had asked me and legal to go ahead and develop an ordinance that allows for the keeping of backyard chickens within the city limits. After working closely with planning and zoning, we are confident that we've put together an ordinance that addresses both the citizens and the council's desire to allow for backyard chickens in the city. Backyard chickens will be allowed in the LDR, LMDR, MDR, MHDR, HDR zoning districts at detached dwelling properties.
Generally, these chickens will only be allowed to be kept in the backyards. However, in the case of corner lots, we are allowing them to be put in the side yards since they technically don't have backyards. Citizens will be allowed to keep up to 4 chickens, and they will be required to have both a coop and a run for these chickens for them to live in. We are also proposing that we allow citizens to sell eggs if they obtain all of the required permits and approvals. However, it will have to be in connection with a lawful home-based business. We are proposing amendments to the animal ordinance as well, which will be up after this, but I figured I'd go ahead and talk about both at the same time since we're here. The animal ordinance will clarify that it's unlawful to allow chickens to run loose in the city, which certainly none of us want. Chickens found loose, we have found out, can be transported to the SBA shelter where they can be kept. Chief Slaughter recommends that we use trappers to catch chickens if they become a larger nuisance in the city. Only time will tell how big of an issue this may or may not become. Also, police will handle noise issues that are associated with the chickens, and code enforcement will handle issues with any unpleasant smells or issues with the structures, such as the chicken coops are run. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions? Councilmember Bunker.
I'm just impressed by the thought that it has to go into, well, what if the chickens escape? How do we deal with that? So I appreciate all the effort into this.
How did the chicken cross the Vice Mayor and then Councilmember Albritton?
I might take a little exception to your opening comment about the large amount of interest in this. I think it's a very loud, vocal minority that's interested in this personally. But we still allow, say, a neighborhood that has an active homeowners association. The neighborhood itself can still prohibit chickens.
Correct. The HOA's rules would prevail over ours.
Okay, good.
Councilmember Albritton.
And how are the setbacks? Is there any setbacks to a coop or?
Correct. We'll be
Yes.
using the accessory structure setbacks found in the Community Development Code for that.
Okay.
Gina, I don't know if this is a question for you rather than Matthew, but I've still got to think about what the enforcement process is going to be for this. And maybe the deputy chief would want to weigh in too, but my only concern is how much we're going to be spending on resources if this doesn't go the right way, if people are not responsible. Do you want to venture a guess?
I don't know how widespread the interest is in having chickens in Clearwater. We did speak with our fellow code enforcement officers in the area, and some communities had more complaints than others. Bradenton, I think, actually had 15 violations the previous year that they took forward to their board. Largo indicated they get a lot of calls for complaints. How many they move forward, to code enforcement action at a board, I don't know.
What were the type of complaints that they were receiving?
I don't have all the details on that. Ken corresponded with them, so I'm not really sure.
I'd appreciate him being here on Thursday.
Okay, yeah, he can do that. So I think while the chief had gotten through his information, places weren't getting a lot of complaints. We were, I think, getting a little more balanced perspective from the folks that Ken is in touch with. Most communities allow it in the area, so, I don't know if they're that problematic or not.
Chief Gandy, anything to add?
Chief indicated that the police departments that have had this in their communities had low demand for the noise component. I think what you'll probably end up, and we discussed the component about size of the pens and odors and things like that. I'm in Safety Harbor myself, and when I go running, I've got a neighbor that has chickens, and it's obvious there's chickens there. So it's something, I think it'll be situational depending upon where you are and proximity of neighbors. But if we're just handling the noise side, I don't see a lot of work for us. But
the other component could be significant, I suspect.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the passion of the people that want the chickens, want us to allow it, but I see a lot of potential negatives in, you want to be good neighbors, you want to have good relations with your neighbors, and I see, someone who wants chickens in their yard but isn't necessarily doing all the right things to do it properly, and it becoming a nuisance for new neighbors, and neighbors call to complain, and then how much weight is going to be given to the complaint itself, and I just, this is a real tough one. I mean, I understand some people wanting them, the ability to go out and pick up fresh eggs, their own fresh eggs for their own consumption, and everything. I understand that, but when you live in a community as dense as ours, I'm not sure the problems don't outweigh the positives. And between now and Thursday night, I've got a lot of thinking to do. I really do. I mean, it is just that way. Because trust me, the people that come up to speak in favor of the chickens, their passion is undeniable. But I'm just not sure that our community, if it's the right fit.
Do you have something to add, Ms. Clayton?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I would like to point out that some of the other communities in our area, and I don't have the list in front of me, they allow a lot more chickens than this ordinance does. We're proposing only 4. I think maybe St. Pete and maybe even in Safety Harbor, they're like 10, 12. There's communities that allow that many chickens. So, maybe our problems might be a little less than some of those other communities that allow like a farm almost.
So how did you land on 4?
I think that's what the county has. We felt it was a reasonable number to generate enough eggs for the folks living there.
Okay. Councilmember Albrecht.
I think anything that comes along that's new, that has to deal with our neighborhoods, you should go to the number one thing, and that's be a good neighbor. I mean, be a good neighbor in your neighborhood, and to people that have concern they might have some, issue, and just try to work it out. If you don't smell the chickens, but your neighbors do, there's probably an issue you need to take care of, I would say. So, we'll just see how it works out. Like I said, a lot of communities around us have it, which I didn't know that until we started talking about this. So, see how it works out. We'll see what happens Thursday night.
Other comments and questions? Ms. Aiken, do you have something to
I
add?
have a comment. Given the setbacks required in our code, there are a lot of our smaller properties that it won't fit on. You may not be able to get a coop and a run with the required setbacks on every property. My property, for example, there's no place to put it and meet setback requirements. And I'm not unique with smaller lots. So it doesn't mean everybody is going to be able to have coops and runs.
So, I've got another question related to that, because I was kind of thinking about that when I asked what the setbacks were. So we aren't requiring permits for this, or are we?
We had indicated that we weren't going to do permits at this time for chickens.
Okay, so then if somebody puts a chicken coop in their backyard and they don't meet the required setbacks, that would be something that
Going to be
taken care
complaint
of.
driven.
That would be a code enforcement issue.
Code enforcement issue.
Correct.
Okay.
Come on up, Gina.
Sorry. I was just going to say it'll be like how we handle sheds. If there are certain sites, they don't have to get a permit, but they still have to meet the setback requirements, so we modeled it after that. If the ordinance is passed clearly, we'll have to post information to guide people and get the word out, what the setbacks are and have people check with us.
Some kind of informational piece.
Councilmember Becker.
Yeah, I think, I agree with Councilmember Albritton's statement about being a good neighbor. And I think, I've lived next to people who have dogs that bark all night or let their cats run loose, and their cats poop in flower beds that are near my windows and all that sort of stuff that's harder to enforce. At least if you've got somebody that's doing something bad with their hens, it's easily identifiable, right? They've got some structure or something, and either they're doing it properly or not. Where those other nuisance things with domestic pets are more of a challenge. So I think, I'm in favor of this. I think it's got a lot of positives, and I hope people, it ends up being people being responsible and respectful, really. That's what it is with most laws.
Councilmember Bunker?
My chicken-loving friends are very responsible, and I appreciate that, and I tend to think, well, everyone's like that, and I know they're not. I also think not everyone in the city is going to have chickens, so I don't see how widespread this issue is going to be, but I certainly hope that we have the ability to, point out to those folks who aren't living up to their chicken promise that they got to take care of this mess. That's all.
Anything else?
Yeah, I guess my biggest question is how are we going to enforce or know for a fact that the chicken coop is the right size, the run is the right size, if we don't have a permitting process?
Point driven.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna set, your coop has to be a certain size and the run has to be a certain size, why wouldn't we make it a permit issue? You need to get a permit and present the plan where it's going in your backyard to make sure it has the right setback, and we get a chance to see it and make sure it meets everything it's supposed to meet before we sign off and say, okay, now you can put chickens in it. To me, that makes sense. How do you not control? I mean, if we're going to set standards on how big the pins and the runs have to be, how do we do that and not be able to get on the property to see it to say, okay, now you can put a chicken in it?
Ms. Clayton, do you have any comments on the permitting process?
I don't know that we need to put anything more in our planning and development department right now, but Ms. Clayton, come on up, jump into the fray. The water's fine.
It's getting a little hot. Frankly, we just really, as the mayor said, didn't want to take on another item to permit. And we're hoping that people will pretty much be on the honor system when they do it with the information that we provide. If that is something that you want to have folks come down into the department, they're of a certain size where really they don't need a building permit. So that's really another compelling reason why they would really, I think, be more of a zoning permit approval type thing, that if you wanted us to do that, if you're concerned about it, we can, or we could just deal with it on an enforcement basis.
Councilmember Albritton.
So, here's my comeback to your concern.
Okay.
I think most, building permits are life safety, that kind of, you want to make sure you're building something that people are going to be safe in. A chicken coop, chicken, okay? But the chief could tell you, we have a lot of laws on the books that people don't really know until they break them. And, they say, well, I didn't know that. Well, it's your responsibility to know that. So that's when the enforcement happens. So I say it'd probably be the same thing as that.
And if we begin having issues, we could also process an amendment to the code if we, becomes an issue down the line as well. So that's certainly maybe something we could consider.
Other questions? All right, 14.2 is a follow-on.
Amend Clearwater Code of Ordinances, Chapter 8, Animals, Section 8.04, exceptions to Section 8.03, to add subsection 11, allowing for the keeping of chickens pursuant to Section 3.40 204 point I or 1?
I believe it was an I.
Okay. Of the Clearwater Community Development Code, amend section 8.33 to include chickens in the list of animals owners are prohibited from allowing to roam at large, and pass ordinance 8489-21 on first reading. He sort of already covered that, but
We'll get to talk about all of it on Thursday. 14.3.
request for authority to initiate a quiet title action against the real property located at 407 Vine Avenue, Clearwater, Florida.
Mr. Fuino?
Thank you, Ms. Hagan. Good morning, council members. Michael Fuino, Assistant City Attorney. The subject property was obtained by the city from the Pinellas County through what the county referred to as a county deed. The county obtained the property through the ad valorem treatment process. The purpose of the quiet title action is to ensure that when the city goes to surplus and transfer the property, that the city has insurable and marketable title. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Fuino?
Nope.
Consent?
Yes.
14.4.
Request for authority to initiate foreclosure actions on behalf of the city to recover amounts owed on municipal liens imposed against certain real property. Mr. Fuino.
Thank you again, Ms. Hagan. Michael Fuino, Assistant City Attorney. The city has selected 13 properties that have a total of 17 code enforcement liens imposed against them for referral to foreclosure to the outside counsel. The properties were selected based on the amount of the lien, which is a function of the amount of time that the property is out of compliance, which they still are, the type of violation, and whether there are, any other superior liens or subjects on the property. For that reason, we would ask that the council allow us to initiate the foreclosures on those properties. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions? Vice Mayor?
A couple of these properties are listed multiple times with, like 1233 Lakeview Road is listed twice with the exact same numbers both times.
Yes, there's actually 3 properties that have multiple liens on them, and one property has 3,
Yeah,
1
Mary Road.
and 2 have 2, and that's just because they were taking up the code board in separate actions and separate fines and liens were imposed against them. If that answers your question, sir.
Consent?
Yep.
14.5.
Appoint John Jennings as city manager effective November 8th, 2021, and approve the employment agreement. Council, on September 2nd, you unanimously agreed to offer John Jennings the position of city manager and directed the city attorney to negotiate an employment agreement with Mr. Jennings. Based on our discussion, he will be starting November 8th of this year. We agreed to a salary of $230,000 annually. He gets the purchase money pension plan, the 401A, as a benefit by ordinance, which is 15% of pay. The car allowance is $600 per month. He gets general leave, as does the city attorney, of 35 days per year. He requested an increased cap on accrual to 120 days total, which is the same request made by the city attorney. I recommend that you approve that. He will move into the city within 1 year. He will get a reimbursement of up to $35,000. It's $25,000 for the actual and reasonable cost of moving, packing, storing, including trips back and forth to Clearwater. And then because of changes to the IRS rules, that is now taxable, and he has requested that we gross that up and provide an additional up to $10,000 for reimbursement of income tax and Social Security. And that's the agreement.
Any questions? Councilmember Albrecht.
I just have a comment. I'm glad he's coming on board on November and not first of the year, as we had talked about before. Faster he can get in and get familiar with everything, the better the city's gonna be. So,
It was very good to get to spend some time with him this weekend, and it reinforced my decision, along with everybody else's, that he's the right person at this time. Gave him an opportunity to really get to meet the different leaders with the Phillies, so I think that was good, and I too am glad it's going to be the 8th instead of some later date. That'll make both our new attorney and manager coming in pretty close to one another, so I think that's healthy. Anything else? Consent?
Yes.
Okay. Item 16.1. Do you have anything else, Mr. Maxwell?
I do not.
16.1.
So council, this is a discussion item only, that I'm not asking you to approve this ordinance this week or at this meeting. And this is a discussion to talk about the draft of the ranked choice voting ordinance, which I believe is now attached to your agenda item.
It is.
So, just going to walk through this pretty quickly. We have the normal kind of whereas clauses. The way this ordinance is structured is to define what ranked choice voting is. And also, the current voting system will stay in place until such time as ranked choice voting is able to be implemented with the necessary state approvals and regulations. So we maintain the plurality vote until the state approves the ability to do ranked choice voting. And what that means is they will have to approve the voting equipment and software. That is, I don't have a prediction as to how long that will take. The advocates for ranked choice voting are moving forward to try to get that, to advance efforts to get judicial approval and then subsequently state approval, but there is no set time frame for that at this point. So the ordinance provides that ranked choice voting takes effect at that time, and then it describes what ranked choice voting is. And it goes step by step what happens at each point in the process. The lowest person in the first round, the votes from that person, those ballots get re-examined, and it all happens by computer. It's not a detailed. And their votes get distributed upward to the other people, that their second choice. And you do that until you have someone who has more than 50% of the vote. It doesn't change our regular voting time, date, or affect special elections. Do you have questions about what this structure looks like?
Questions for Ms. Aiken? Councilmember Beckman.
Wasn't there something on one of the pages, and I'll go to the third page, maybe, no. I thought there was something about a year.
Yes.
Where, was that on page 1 of 3 at the
There's
bottom?
actually two places where we reference. Once the voting equipment and the voting software are established, this would be implemented 1 year afterward. And that is at the bottom of the ordinance, section 5, that talks about implementation.
So our next election following that year after it was.
Yes.
So it could not be implemented less than a year.
It would take at least a year to implement it, so it would have to, the election would have to be at least 1 year later. Any questions?
And this would be for state and national elections?
No, just
Only
for
our
city.
This is just for city council. We can't affect county, state, or national, and they are, the county and state are plurality, and that's constitutional.
Okay.
And
Well, they have runoffs, though.
they do.
Would we ever put okay, our elections are held in March, so there wouldn't be anything that would interfere with a November election that would be ranked anything.
No.
We could put some kind of a referendum on November, but nothing with any candidates. Period.
Right. The candidates,
Are always
unless you
allowed.
have a special election. If you have a special election for a replacement of someone who left, then it would be ranked choice. And this does not apply to issues, only applies to council members. Do you want to move this forward to the next meeting? Your time frame that you need to meet is to have it adopted by the end of December. So you would need to have second reading in your December meeting. Do we have 2 meetings in December? So you would have to adopt by your second meeting in December. We can go ahead and move it forward and complete it while I'm still city attorney, or you can get the input from your new folks, manager and attorney, if you choose. You just need to get this done. If you want it for the March election, you need to get it done by December.
What's your pleasure?
I'm
Vice
not-
Mayor?
I don't know that we have to, I don't feel pressed to get it done while Pam is still in her seat, but I will tell you, we need to get it done before the second meeting of December, because I will not be here at the second meeting in December. I have travel plans that I will miss the second meeting of December. I'll be here for the work session before the second meeting of December, but I will not be here for the second meeting of December, so I would prefer that the the second vote for that be taken no later than the first meeting in December for planning purposes.
I can go ahead and put it on the agenda for the next meeting, and if you're not comfortable based on public comment or whatever other reason, then you can continue it to a later meeting. So I can just go ahead and put it on, and then you can make a decision at that time.
Any other comments? Okay. 17.1, Councilmember Albritton, PSTA Forward Pinellas update.
Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the Flamingo card. I know I mentioned it before, but, in September, we went back online fully. We've had over 1 million uses of the Flamingo card. And so here's the card right here that you can get, and you use it like a credit card. You can put on money onto it. It's touchless. You go up. You don't have to fumble around for change. Find, your fare rates. You just go up to the machine on every bus and touch it, and it scans and takes out the proper fare. It even protects you on fare capping, because if you use the bus a lot for transit, it'll only go up to $5 a day, and which is nice because you don't have to show all your stubs and everything. So you could get it a card if you prefer to have a card, or you can get it on an app on your phone, and it's the same thing. You just load up your money onto it, and then just scan it as you go through. Quick, easy. I've got a video I want to have you watch here that explains it a little better. So, Joel, if you could.
Here's the scoop on Flamingo fares, the contactless way to pay that'll make boarding the bus fast and easy without the headache of paper tickets or loose change.
Now you're probably wondering, how does this whole Flamingo thing work? Don't worry, we've got you covered. Flamingo Fares offers 2 methods of payment so you can ride PSTA. You can either use a reusable Flamingo card for your convenience, or the Flamingo Fares app for quick access at your fingertips.
So maybe you prefer the Flamingo card. Here's what you need to know.
You can purchase the Flamingo Fares card for $3 at PSTA Customer Service Center windows or at select retail network locations. You want to make sure to add funds to your card right away, which you can do at the PSTA Customer Service Center window. You can also add funds to your Flamingo card at select retail locations or through flamingofares.com. Don't forget to register your card also at the website. If you happen to lose your card, don't sweat it. You can have the card replaced at any PSTA terminal for $3, or you can reactivate or deactivate any lost card through the Flamingo Fares website, as long as you've registered the card beforehand. Ready to board? Simply tap your Flamingo card here. That's it. Bet you're glad you didn't have to fumble through your wallet for exact change.
For those of you planning to use the Flamingo Fares app, download it to your phone using the App Store or Google Play Store. Next, register to create your account. You need to provide your email, password, and just a few more details. Then it's time to add a saved payment. Do so by going to the Settings menu in the top left. Choose Payment Methods. Tap the plus button in the bottom right and add your card details. Then at the bottom, tap Save. Now you can load money to your virtual card. You can do so in the Settings menu by clicking the Manage option. Then along the toolbar, clicking Load Money. Select the amount you like, tap Place Order, and that's it. Ready to board? Scan your Flamingo Fares app here, and that's it. You're good to go. Enjoy your ride.
Say goodbye to the days of buying single tickets or guessing how much you'll ride. With Flamingo Fares, you can experience a new benefit known as fare capping that'll help you save money. If riders reach the daily or monthly maximum fares, they won't be charged additional trips. That means you'll never pay beyond $5 a day or over $70 a month when you're using Flamingo Fares. Flamingo Fares connects the Tampa Bay region, including Pinellas County, Hillsborough, and our neighbors in Pasco and Hernando County. So wherever you may go throughout the Bay, Flamingo Fares can get you there.
Okay, I just want to make a note to this. Also, the reason why I'm kind of pushing this is because, and I'll talk to you about this in a little bit with the Fort Pinellas. We're talking about waterborne transportation, and the waterborne transportation for all of Pinellas County is going to go under the wing of PSTA, and you'll be able to use your Flamingo card not only for buses but for travel on the water as well. So that's going to be a great. I just think it's so convenient that way. So be looking forward to us putting that together.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yeah.
The Flamingo card, is it set up like SunPass on your
Yes.
car, where it will automatically add money to your account when you get below a certain level, or do you have to always physically go in to add money to your card?
I don't know the answer to that exactly, but I think you have to load it yourself on there.
Because I like the SunPass where,
Yeah.
if I drop below
$25
below $10, it
Yeah.
automatically loads another 25 into it. And that's very convenient. You never get stuck with, oh, well, wait, I can't get on the bus just yet because I haven't loaded money into my account. So
I'll check into that and get back with you on that.
I'd like to know that. That'd be great.
So the other thing I wanted to mention real quick, this Thursday, and I thought it was Friday on my calendar, but it's Thursday at 10 a.m., Clearwater's PSTA Intermodal Center is having a press event. I'm going to be there, the mayor's going to be there, Brad Miller, a lot of elected officials. This is a showing a declaration of community support for our Intermodal Center, and it'll be covered by press. The idea is to, as you know, we have a RAISE grant that's been applied for by the federal government, and we've sent up, this year I really think that we have so much support on this, and we've checked all the boxes that the federal government looks for when they, look at applicants to make them successful in the, winning the grant. So this was just another the thing we're doing, and we're gonna, I think, Charlie Crist will be there as well to speak. We're gonna send that up to Washington as well and say, look, the whole community's in back, but here's people are excited about it. So anybody can come. It's an open invitation. Come on out, corner of Myrtle and Court Street, the big empty lot. We're going to have a press event at 10 a.m. this Thursday. So just real quick to wrap things up, Ford Pinellas, the Waterborne Transportation Committee, which I serve as vice chair, developed the following recommendations for adopting for the waterborne transportation. And we've recommend the establishment of sustainable funding strategy that uses federal and state grants to support waterborne service development and expansion as an integrated component of the public transportation system. The Fort Pinellas Waterborne Committee recommends that the Suncoast Transit, Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority serve as the administrative and contracting entity for waterborne transportation service in Pinellas County, because PSTA is a recipient of federal, state, and local funds. And also, we are recommending a phased approach to the incorporation of routes that will increase intermodal connectivity between the beach communities and the mainland. And at the last meeting, they did identify routes, and they'll be strategic and based on the needs of the residents. I have a great PowerPoint that I think I sent to you, Micah. I'd like to at some point maybe have them come in at one of our meetings and present it and then describe it, because it's really good to see how this phased approach is going to happen. This is real serious stuff. This isn't just like pie in the sky. This is on, the movement is there. We're pushing forward, and we're a great community to have waterborne transportation and connectivity to the beaches, because we can do it linearly instead of, you know, with a bus you have to go around where the bridges are. And on the water you can go directly to where you're going. So anyway, I'll keep you up to date as we get further along on this, but we're moving forward. Any questions?
Councilmember Beckman? And then our,
Can you share that document with me that you were reading, and then any PowerPoint that you've got?
Yeah.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
And then I had a question about that Flamingo card. Can you use it on the Jolly Trolley system?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, anything under PSTA you can use it. So Jolly Trolleys, you can use it there as well.
Thanks.
Mr. Maxwell?
So I just wanted to make sure it was clear to everyone, just so we have the right expectations moving forward. What is shown on the screen before us here is not something that at this time conforms to our code, to the downtown plan. So we're still working with them on what it's actually going to look like, but I just wanted to make sure it was clear that this isn't necessarily the rendering that we're going to get, or the structure that we're going to get. We'll keep everyone in the loop on it though. That's it.
What are the issues that don't conform?
There are a number. I don't know. Michael, do you know do you have any sense of what they all were? There were quite a few of them, if I remember correctly. Unfortunately, Gina's probably the best to speak to it, but she's not here right now.
Good morning, Michael Lavery, City Manager's Office. That is really a question for Ms. Clayton. It was specific to the Downtown Development Code. There was discussion about, Mr. Duck, do you recall the?
I think some of it's the build-to lines. It's not really intermodal or multimodal, so I think there were some concerns about matching the specifics of what they're proposing to the overall objectives of what we were trying to get from a multimodal center. So those are issues that we just need to work through. Access, curb cuts to Court and Chestnut, and how the traffic flow works. I think what they're finding is that the site is somewhat constrained for the full facility. So, trying to have it be more than a replication of the bus bay in terms of future potential or options, I think is a challenge, and it's just something that they and the PSTA staff and their consultants are working through.
Have they looked at purchasing the last remaining parcel on that site?
Yeah, I think PSTA was going to contact them again. We talked about that, or at least I did with them a few weeks ago in a conversation that I was having with them. You know, staff, I think, is trying to look outside the box as to how to try to facilitate, you know, a facility that meets all of our, you know, some of our objectives from the downtown plan standpoint and what we're trying to accomplish with transportation down here. So it's very much, I think, a work in progress. Can't give you a lot more information on that right now, other than it's just, you know, it's one of those things we just simply have to work through.
Well, I hope we get this right.
Well,
You know,
and I
this
think
is gonna
that's the
be-
concern.
This is
Yeah.
gonna be built and there for a very long time. Certainly the Park Street has been there longer than we ever anticipated. There was talk about relocating this prior to me getting on the council in '02. So it's not like this is moved at lightning speed. You know, I mean, even if we had to look at vacating Franklin and going into the empty lot north or south of the MSB, I think it ought to be done right. I also got an email this morning from the property owner that remains on the total site that, you know, they're having significant issues with homeless, and that's been an ongoing issue. Maybe they would be interested in relocating, so. Vice Mayor?
Well, yeah, and I mean, we refer to this as a, you know, multimodal site, but to be honest, by the time when it's initially built, it's going to be a bus terminal. It's going to be a transfer station for the buses. We don't have multimodal available yet. I think it needs to be adaptable for future use of multimodal, but I think it's also, I don't want to delay this waiting for, well, we're going to be able to hook this up to it when we don't have that on the horizon just yet. So I think it's, you know, this is going to be a intermodal system, intermodal initially, multimodal in the future. And I don't want to handcuff it initially and because of that.
I think this is going to be more than a bus station. I mean, we all want it to be more than a bus station. And we've always thought it'd be more. And then I'll tell you, the position of this, the location of this was for how many years? 10, 12 years? I mean, before you were even, I think back in, when you were mayor here last time, because we were looking at being the position on the rail.
We bought it because of the CSX line.
Yeah.
At that time, we were talking about the T-BARTA plan that looked at the entire region. And the MPO at the time looked at buying the CSX line as a potential location for light rail. It's very low-hanging fruit. There were only 2 trains a week. One carried newsprint down to the Tampa Bay Times, and the other carried aggregate for a concrete plant. Printing is no longer being done by the Times down in St. Pete. They've outsourced that to Lakeland, and I don't know that the aggregate plant is even working anymore. The problem was that CSX wanted to sell the entire Tampa Bay region line, which didn't just include Pinellas County. And there was not a desire from the region to buy that entire line. And that was the sticking point. Also, some of the orientations of light rail, there was argument about how it would be oriented. Would it go all the way through Oldsmar, which is where the CSX line runs, and then come, you know, it runs pretty far west and then runs southeast going down to St. Petersburg. But there is a lot of it underused or unused industrial space along that CSX line that had great opportunity for greater density and intensity so that you could put any growth in the county along that CSX line, and people then could use mass transit rather than their automobiles. That's why we bought that's why we bought the Times property. And it was gonna be multimodal because we were gonna have cars, potentially light rail, and the trail all at one site.
And I was involved with the charrettes during that time of green light. That's what it was called. It was a referendum that failed. But I can tell you this, T-BARTA still has that light shining about negotiation with CSX. So, I mean, it's something that might come along. And back when this was talked about, I mean, we didn't have all the type of modes we have now, the micro mobilities and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how this develops into a plan, that that'll really, I think, be good for our downtown. So.
Any other questions? All right, any new business to be put on future agendas? Okay, well then we will see everybody on Thursday. Until then, we're adjourned. God bless.